Shalom everyone, and this week we're reading Parashat Tetsaveh, the book of Exodus, chapter 27, verse 20. ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל, ויקחו אליך שמן זית זך, כתית למאור, להעלות נר תמיד. The meaning, we are still just the frame, we are still on Mount Sinai. Moses did not come down with the tablets yet. That's only next week's parasha. And we have something really important because this is the end of the ShOVaVYM TaT, according to Rabbi Ashlag, Baal HaSulam. So the special days of the Exodus are coming now to completion, the special time for spiritual transformation. Of course, we have more chances. Next week we have Purim. Then a month later we have Passover. The year is full of gates for spiritual elevation, and this is one of it. And Parashat Tetsaveh is a continuation of Parashat Terumah. Both are dealing with the new era from slavery into redemption, into responsibility. What does it mean, responsibility? Creating a society, creating also, and that was, we read it last week, Parshat Terumah, building the Mishkan, building a system that unites the heaven and the earth and gives us the responsibility for how the spiritual light of the Creator will be manifest into this physical world. And this is extremely important. Another thing that is extremely important, and it's another side of the same thing, the coming Shabbat is called Shabbat Zakhor. This is the Shabbat before Purim, and before Purim we read two books. First we read Parashat Tetsaveh, and then we take another Torah and we read Parashat Tetsaveh and what is called Parashat Zakhor. Zakhor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what the Amalek did to you, and you should erase the memory of Amalek, and you shouldn't forget doing that. Okay? What is the connection between the two parashot, and how does that affect the coming week? A very powerful week, very special week. Could be, right now the whole Middle East is on its toes. Armageddon war can start any second. What's going to be? What is the name of the war, really? Is this the real Armageddon? Is this going to change humanity forever? A lot of questions, a lot of fears, a lot of anxiety. We need to stay centered. And let's see, we have the instructions always in Parshat Shavua. So Parshat Shavua is talking about the working of the Kohanim, Aaron and his children, the Kohanim, the priests, in the Mishkan, in the portable temple. And it starts, V'ikhu elecha shemen zait zach katit lamor. And they should take a pure olive oil for the eternal candle. Boel Moed, in the tent outside the Parochet, that is by the Holy of Holies, and this is about the eternal candle. And especially we're talking about lighting the candle. And why the candle is so important? Because we know in many cultures around the world, when you want to connect to the unseen reality, the unseen dimension of this world, you light a candle. So let's say in our culture, when we talk about coming of the Shabbat, When is Shabbat coming? People ask each other. Okay. When did anybody see the Shabbat coming? No, you cannot see Shabbat coming in. You cannot see the physical presence of Shabbat. However, you can tap into it by lighting the Shabbat candles to mark the moment Shabbat descends to this physical world. So Shabbat is invisible, but the candle is the bridge to that presence that is not physical, but it's there. Same thing. You want to connect to somebody's soul that passed away, so you don't see the soul, but you light a memorial candle. You have that in many cultures around the world, in which the candle is the bridge between the world of the soul and the world of the body. And of course, the candle, the flame of the candle can be seen and felt. However, you cannot hold it in your hands. It is something in between. So when we are talking about the eternal candle, this is very important because from the moment that the Mishkan had been established, now there is that task to light the eternal candle with olive oil, which is also important for the olive oil. And that should be lit eternally, which means to symbolize the eternal connection between the metaphysical spiritual dimension and the physical dimension. Without that connection, our human existence will be wilting. The moment you get the metaphysical, the spiritual dimension out of your life, and you claim, we can live without God, we can live without the soul. The soul does not exist. God does not exist. And that's, a materialistic society denies, especially in the academy, denies the existence of a God or the God, denies a power beyond the physical, denies the existence of a soul that basically is what gives life for the body. And if we understand that most of the, let's say, the sources of whatever we call education, study, learning of our society are dedicated for that concept that God does not have any place in our world. And now you wonder, why is it that civilization, modern civilization, feels like it is wilting into this horrible drought simply when you don't keep the eternal candle, and which means you don't keep the eternal bridge between the soul and the body, the supernatural and the physical, the spiritual and the physical. If you don't do that, which is basically the purpose of humanity, something bad happens. And we're facing that. So here we have the job of the priest. And as we explained in Parshat Truma last week, the moment the temple was destroyed, a little bit less than 2,000 years ago, all the duties of the temple have been outsourced to the individual person. And now you have to generate that kind of divinity in your daily life. And that is, on one hand, a hard task, especially in our very materialistic era. On the other hand, it's the most exciting task because everybody's looking for the magic, everybody's looking for the supernatural, everybody's looking for the fantasy something that is beyond the physical logic that is dry and tiring. Yes, you need physical logic. That is responsible for a lot of the gifts that we have today. But that's not enough. When you create a body, you need a soul to dwell in that body. When you create a house, you need the feeling of a home in that house. When you build a life, you need some spirit to dwell into that life. And that is again and again should be the task, the major task of of humanity today. So when we're talking about the clothes of the high priest and the other priests helping him, when we are talking, so we have that in the next few verses, and then we are talking about the breastplate and the special stones on the breastplate, in which the breastplate became. Talking about verse chapter 28, verse 15. Ve'asita choshen, and you make a breastplate. And all the precious stones on the breastplate, and the engraving of the names of the tribes over of the stones, 12 stones, 12 tribes, and how the breastplate was put on the breast of the Kohen, the high priest, and the Urim veTumim. Urim veTumim, that's basically the stones, but Urim veTumim means basically the lights that will shine. Again, that's the holy name of God. Rashi is saying, שהנותנו בתוך כפלי החושן, על ידו מאיר דבריו ומתמם את דבריו. So there was basically another mean to connect to the will of God. So now what's in it for us, and how can we connect it to those very crucial days in the history of humanity that we are facing right now? So when we read about Parshat Tetsaveh, we'll go to the Zohar, verse 38. ואתה הקרב אליך, אמר רבי שמעון, לה שימש משה דיור שימשה בסערה, עד יתקלל בכל סיטרין ברזה דבב, כמד או כמנה. Moses was, relatively speaking, the son. And Moses, did not use the moon, the relative between the sun and the moon. The relativity is that the two big lights, the sun and the moon, we know that the sun represents the male aspect of the creation because the sun is ongoingly shining, giving its life force for all the planets around it. Okay? This is the male aspect of the creation. This is the creator. The moon symbolizes the creation itself because the moon has no light of its own. It has only the light it reflects from the sun. So when we are talking about the sun and the moon, we're talking about the relationship between the creator, God the creator, who is the source of life, and the creation that does not have life of its own, only the life it reflects from the creator, the infinite power of life that is always coming from the creator. The moment you deny that connection, it's like the moon saying to the sun, you know what? I'm okay. I can do it on my own. I don't need your favors. So Moses, who's here compared to the sun, and the moon, which is Malchut, the Shekhinah, Moses was able to be the messenger of the sun, the heavenly sun, only when he was totally included with the Hebrew letter Vav. Why is that important? Because in Parshat Tetsaveh, all those paragraphs start with the Hebrew letter Vav. It's ve'ata, ve'ata. How to translate it into English, but simple English is and you. This is very unique because it doesn't appear in other parashot. Okay? In other parashot, it said, and God spoke to Moses saying, do this and this. Here, the name of Moses does not appear even once through the whole parasha of Tetzaveh, but it says ve'ata, and you will. And the and is the Hebrew letter Vav, which is very important over here because the Vav symbolizes that aspect of the spiritual dimension, that dimension is the one that funnels the bliss, the life force of the Creator from the upper world to our reality. How do we make that happen? We'll read it soon. Okay. Ashrei Israel, Zakain Inun Israel, praiseworthy are the nation of Israel, the Arlu Venafku, that they entered, Veyadei Berazain, they know the secret, the Orchoi Doraita, the ways of the Torah, Lemehach Beorach Kshot, to walk on the path of truth. Verse 39, מתוך בני ישראל, עמי מתוך בני ישראל, אלא כל לה אתקרא למהווה חד קדקה יאות, אלא מתוך בני ישראל. He's asking, what does it mean when it says from within the children of Israel? That started with the verse they was translating, מתוך בני ישראל לכהנו לי. From within the children of Israel to carry the priesthood. Okay, at chapter 28 in the Exodus. And he answers, אלא הכל אינו נקרא אחד להיות אחד כראוי. The whole world will never be really united as one, properly, אלא מתוך בני ישראל. Only from within the children of Israel. כי בני ישראל עומדים למטה לפתוח דרכים, listen carefully, because the children of Israel, they stand below on the physical plane, לפתוח דרכים, to open roads, ולהאיר שבילים, and to shine the pathways, ולהדליק הנרות, and to light the candles. שהם ספירות עליונות, that are the upper ספירות. ולקרב הכל ממטה למעלה, and to bring everything together from below to above. שיהיה הכל אחד. So everything will become one. ומשום זה כתוב, and therefore it is said, ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום. Deuteronomy chapter 4, and you are the ones who attach to the Lord your God, you are all alive today. What does it mean? So we are talking about that the Mishkan work, the work of the tabernacle, was a very important beginning in the history of humanity, which means through the work of the Mishkan, the people of Israel started to unite the whole world above and below and all the nations together. That was the purpose of the establishment of the tabernacle. So when it is said, verse 40, Ve'ata hakrev elecha, and you should bring closer to you. We just read that. Okay, to bring the Kohanim, or basically to appoint all of those people to their missions. But what is important is the next paragraph, verse 40. אמר רבי שמעון, הכל הוא נקרב על ידי מי שיודע לייחד הייחוד ולעבוד אדונו. Everything, now there's a game of words. When you're talking about bring closer, is lehakriv. It's the same word exactly to bring sacrifice. In Hebrew, it is the same word, which means it is the same action. The purpose of the offering or sacrifice is not to sacrifice to an idol to appease the not nice idol sitting somewhere in the who knows where, but to get everything close and united, which means humans with the upper dimensions and the Creator himself, and make everything one. That's why the word that is being used is the conjugations of the verb karav. Karav to means to get close, to bring close. And which is also the same root for a sacrifice, korban. So it's not a sacrifice, it's a getting closer. So when Rabbi Shimon says everything will be brought closer by by whoever knows how to make that unification. So today we don't have animal sacrifice, but the Zohar says when we make the yichud, which means today we can create something similar when we create the meditation of uniting the names of God, the upper name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, the Tetragrammaton, with the name of this physical world, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, and there is a whole big paragraph about the usage of the name of God. You can find it also on our channel on Live Kabbalah TV. You have the meditation of the Yichud. Okay, very important. You can find it in if you search for basic Kabbalistic meditation. Okay, and that meditation is the temple work, basically. We can do it, we have to do it. That's basically a shortcut to what the Mishkan was doing as long as there was a temple. Now, what does that mean? When we make that yichud, unification, through our meditation, we unite the upper and the lower, the creator with the creation, the male aspect, the heavens of the creation, and the female aspect, the earth of the creation. That's called שיודע לייחד הייחוד ולעבוד לאדונו. Whoever knows the unification and knows how to serve his master. שהרי בזמן שנמצא הקורבן כראוי, so when that korban, which means offering, sacrifice, but really the bringing together, the unification is properly made, as nitkarev hakol yachad, then everything gets closer together to become one. Dehainu tzadim, and it's not just the upper and the lower, it's the right and the left, the giving and the receiving. והארת הפנים של הקדוש ברוך הוא, and then the shining of the face of God is available. We're not talking about physical shining of physical face. We're talking about the illumination of the life force that so the creation can feel that, like somebody who loves you and smiles at you, and you feel illuminated. And that shining, נמצא בעולם בבית המקדש, is there in the world in the temple. And what happens when that shining is revealed, this illumination is being revealed, הסטרא אחרא נכנע ונסתר. The dark side is subjugated and is being hidden. He has no place in the is no place to appear. וצד הקדושה שולט, and then holiness is kedusha, is governing, controlling, taking over. באורה ושמחה, with shining light and with happiness. וכשהקורבן לא נמצא כראוי, and when the sacrifice or the korban, the unification is not happening properly because the human mind is not really there, and then the yichud is not properly, so there's no unification. As a panim atzuvot, then we can experience sad face. It's like God becomes sad facing us. We don't change God, but we face our interaction with Him. ואור אינו נמצא, and then the light is not available. והלבנה שהיא המלכות נסתרת, and then the moon, which is מלכות, is hidden. והסטרא אחרא שולט בעולם, and then the dark side controls all over the world. Why? משום שאין מי שיודע לייחד השם הקדוש כראוי, because there's no one who can make the yichud, the unification properly. Which means, if we want to do the temple work today, we should first of all train ourselves to do that meditation that is called the yichud, the unification, to unite the name of God of the heavens with the name of God of the earth. And when we unite them, we basically change the status of the whole of humanity. And that depends on us, the ones who know how to do that unification, that yichud. Again, there's a guided meditation on our channel, Live Kabbalah TV, and you can find that under basic, the yichud, basic Kabbalistic meditation. This is one of the most powerful, and as we said, basically that was the temple work. To create that, today we create that with that unification. Now, this is extremely important, especially nowadays. And why? We have, with that yichud, with the meditations of using this meditation, the meditation of the name of 42 letters, called also the Ana Bekoach, the meditation of the 72 names of God, all of these, all together, we basically replace the work of the Mishkan. Of course, the highest level to do it is using the prayers. The prayers, the morning prayer, the afternoon prayer, the night prayer, all of them replace the ceremonies of the temple, which means after the temple physically was gone, the work of the temple had been outsourced to either Jewish communities with a Torah, the temple work on that side, or to every person's simple spiritual work, to the prayers and the Yehudim, the meditations. Now, when we understand that this is so powerful because it is uniting the upper and the lower, uniting, making as one, bringing closer. So we know that when a person is really aware of his or her responsibility for illumination, for spiritual illumination, for self-control, when we do not allow the dark side to take over, when we do not allow the anger or the hate or the lust or any kind of bodily instinct, low emotions to shut down the light, we overcome that through our own spiritual work, and especially using the Hebrew letters with those meditations. We have the ability to basically control, first of all, our own individual destiny, which means when we think positive, when we think yichud, we are occupied with uniting ourselves, our world, with the upper world, with the bliss of the supernal Sefirot. Okay, when we do that and we connect to the tree of life, then of course our reality is empowered and it's becoming blissful. And now, when we understand more and more, according to the modern research and science, how thinking positive, thinking happy, thinking with enlightenment is changing the whole energy field around each one of us. And then we basically interact with the universe, and the universe shines at us. That's the shining face of God that the Zohar is talking about. You feel lucky. Why are you feeling lucky? Because the Hebrew word for luck, mazal, is coming from the word nozel, which is flow. The moment we create that union, there is a flow of positive light from above to below and into our reality. Then we feel luckier. We feel it's not luck, it's a flow. It's not a leak, it's of luck, but it's a flow of abundance from above that we generate by insisting about uniting our minds and our world with the upper world and insisting of bringing the spiritual light through, in the beginning, just visualizing it, and then you have more and more power to order it in. And that's the name of the parasha, Ve'ata Tetzaveh. And you will give order. You will order. Order what? Order the light in. This is our calling as humans. And that's why we were born in physical bodies. That's why we didn't stay in the upper world. Why? Because when we created in the image of God, that means that we wanted to be like God, to be able to say, let there be light, and create light where it's dark. So that's why we need to come into a physical body that is dark by nature, into a physical world that is dark by nature, and then bring the light in with the meditations, with the unification. And when we do that and we order the light in, we order it to flow into our lives, we create that illumination, that flow that realizes itself later on as we feel more lucky. So we are happier, we are healthier, we can create better environment. We can inspire spiritual positivity and any kind of positivity around us that comes out as a better, luckier life, more enlightened life. This is the power that we have, and we must use it, apply it, because this is our destiny. And so when you ask yourself, why is it that there's still cruelty, injustice, and negativity around the world? The answer is because there are not enough people that are doing the yichud, because the yichud we are doing, and each one of us is taking part of the high priest work by doing those meditations daily. We are basically creating that movement that the world is getting closer to the upper dimension, and we can feel more abundance and more good fortune in our world. Now, how is that connected to Parashat Zakhor? You know, Zakhor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what the Amalek did. So we can read that in Parashat Beshalach. There's the first encounter we have with Amalek. In the Zohar, Parashat Beshalach, there is an amazing section discussing that, and you will be amazed how applicable it is to our times. And I'll read from the Zohar, verse 452 in the Sulam commentary of Rabbi Ashlag. זוהר פרשת בשלח. דבר אחר, יש רעה חולה. The Zohar is giving an interpretation for a very important verse in the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 5, which says, יש רעה חולה תחת השמש. ראיתי תחת השמש. There is an evil sickness under the sun. And the Zohar asking, why evil sickness? Sickness is not evil enough. Evil is not bad enough. Why using the word evil sickness? And there are a few aspects of that. And here we're coming to the one that is the most relevant. And that, as I said, verse 452. היימן דייטיב בחולקת אבה בבית אבוי, ואזיל לקובל אבוי בתסקופי מילין. היי דבק בהוראה חולה, כברנש שכיב מרע דכל אורחוי בתסקופה, דה בעינה ודה לה בעינה. ובגין היי אוטרי דבק ברנש ברעה חולה, והתענש בה עלמא, ובעלמא דעתי ודאו עושר שמור לי ועליו לרעתו. Translation. It's about, what does it mean, evil sickness? When there is a sickness, the Zohar is asking that it's not evil. All sickness, if there's a sickness, it's evil. No, he's saying there is an evil sickness. What's the evil sickness? When somebody lives in his father's estate, in the most luxurious part of his father's estate, he enjoys the luxury of the estate. However, he's busy all the time condemning his father and the whole dwelling. When you do that, you are attaching to that evil sickness. What's evil sickness? It's like a person that is bedridden and all the time he is complaining. He says, once I want this and once I want that. I want this, I want that. No, I don't want this. I want this, now I don't want it. And because of that richness, living in such a luxury, then the person is connecting to that evil sickness. And what's that evil sickness? You cannot enjoy, you cannot be thankful. You're always busy complaining. What am I talking about? There are two aspects to it. One, we're going back. The Israelites are leaving Egypt. They were slaves. It was like concentration camps for centuries. The Egyptians are trying to commit a genocide. Somehow, miraculously, the Hebrews are multiplying faster than the Egyptians can kill them. Okay, but they're still under a lot of torture and abuse by the Egyptians. Finally, that torture and abuse comes to an end with the 10 plagues. The Israelites, they were like people in concentration camps, like in the Nazi concentration camps. You're only a number. You're not even a human being. Like my father was to tell me how the Nazis will send the dogs against them in a camp and will tell the dog, you're the human, they are the dogs, about the Jews. That was the kind of life for centuries, okay? Miraculously, they still kept alive. However, that was horrible suffering and misery. Now, they're out of that. Now they're walking in the desert to meet God. Slowly, slowly, things are getting better and better. They go through healing. And we read in Parshat Beshalach how their trauma is being treated, how the angels were saying to them, how all the roads were full of blooming flowers with healing properties so their trauma could be healed. And then there's a pillar of fire and there's a pillar of smoke that is walking in front of the camp to make you feel that you are protected, that you're not going to be abused anymore. And then you cross the Red Sea and you see how your arch enemy, Egypt, drowns in the sea. And you're never going to see them like that anymore as an abusing empire that enslaves you. Wow. And then the manna comes from the heavens, and the manna was healing also. And the manna was pure, just nutritious food without any waste, without just healing the body, healing the soul. And the water came from the stone. Everything was so miraculous. You were protected. You've been carried like a mother carrying her child. Okay? And then what happens? The Israelites are complaining. They're crying to, and we know, research is showing, when people are not thankful for what they have, they develop diseases. That disease that King Solomon is talking about in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. What is the evil disease? It's not just a disease, the evil disease. Not being thankful, which means on one hand, you are dwelling in your father's most luxurious palace. On the other hand, nothing is good enough for you, and you can't stop complaining about everything. What is the result? First of all, it's an evil disease. You cannot enjoy your gifts, which means you have the best food in the universe. You cannot enjoy it. You're living miracles daily, and you cannot enjoy it. We'll continue, verse 453. Kach Israel, so the nation of Israel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lekacham al kanfei nesharim, God took them on the wings of eagles. הקיף אותם בענני הכבוד, surrounding them with the clouds of honor, of protection. השכינה נסעה לפניהם, the שכינה was traveling in front of them. הוריד להם את המן לאכול, he brought them the manna to eat. הוציא להם מים מתוקים, fresh water came from the rock. והם הלכו עמו בעלילה. And they came to him, to God, with only complaints. Miyad, immediately, vayavo Amalek. And Amalek came. Which means basically, the Amalek was just a symptom. So when we are talking about Amalek, we're not talking about God's scepter, okay? We're talking about the power that brought the Amalek in. What is the power of bringing the Amalek in? So let's bring it to our days. We're living in a miraculous era. Life expectancy is like never before in human history. Richness, which means the access to fresh water, fresh food, sanitation, medicine, whatever, information, knowledge, and also power and freedom, humanity enjoys like never before in the history of human beings. The poorest people still have access to luxuries that in ancient times, not just 200 years ago, royalties did not have. Okay? So when we are talking about this era, it's an era in which God brought us into his luxurious palace and we live like royals. We have the option to live like royals. What is our response? We cannot stop complaining. This is not good enough, and this is not good enough, and this is not good enough. We're complaining day and night. You watch the media, either TV or like it's all complaining about everything. Never been so terrible. Yeah, never been so terrible. Life expectancy 100 years ago was half than what it is today. So many children died at birth. So many children died before coming to maturity. We're talking about the dirt. We're talking about hygiene. We're talking about the life standards, okay? We're talking about that just a few decades ago, you needed to communicate with somebody, either family or business. You had to send a letter. It took weeks or months for the letter to arrive, and then till the letter answering came back. That was how many people had access to telephones. Today, everything is so much different. The ability to access all kinds of information, instead of sitting in the library for hours and days and weeks looking for materials, you have the tips of your finger, AI, and you send the AI to do that work that took a normal human being for weeks and months, and you get the answers within seconds. However, we're missing one thing: gratitude, thankfulness. And research is showing the moment a person is starting to be thankful for whatever we look at as, oh, of course I have it. It's I'm taking things for granted. When we do that, we don't have the vessel to enjoy the light of God, which means gratitude, thankfulness. This is the vessel that allows us to see the shining face of God. What does it mean? To feel lucky. We have to work on that more than ever before. And that is the Amalek. More than that. When we read in the Torah the reading of this coming Shabbat, the reading about the Amalek from Parshat Tetsaveh. And it says, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verse 17. Zakhor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what the Amalek did to you. Baderech, when you're being on the road, traveling, Betzetchem Mitzrayim, coming out of Egypt. Asher karcha, verse 18, Asher karcha baderech, vayizaneh becha kol hanechshalim. Asher karcha baderech, that happened to you on the road. I'm just giving the simplistic translation. Vayizaneh becha et hanechshalim, that chased after you and hurt those that were behind. Ve'ata ayef ve'yagea, while you are tired and velo yare Elohim, and lacking the awe of God. Ve'haya baniach Adonai Elohecha lecha mikol oivecha. And when God, your Lord, will give you rest from all your enemies in your place that he promised you, Timche zech Amalek. It's a time to erase the memory of Amalek from under mitachat hashamayim, from under the heavens. Lo tishkach, do not forget. So let me explain. What does it mean, asher karcha baderech? There are a few translations to that. Karcha baderech, karcha, first of all, coming from the word mikre. We're living, as I said, in a miraculous era. First of all, the luxury that we experience today in all different aspects is beyond anything that humanity ever experienced. The fact that we can turn it into a nightmare, that's not because we're not given the opportunity, it's because we're missing the opportunity, because we cannot be thankful for the gifts that we are getting. Karcha baderech comes from the word some commentators are saying, karcha asher kara, which means it happened by coincidence. When people relate all the good fortune that humanity is experiencing. When I was growing up and I was thinking to myself, what I want to do as I becoming an adult. And I said, I want to make a difference. So therefore I studied science, life sciences, and I joined a team, a laboratory that was working on wheat genetics. Why? I thought, everybody was talking about world hunger. The moment we have better wheat crops, we can feed more people and we can eliminate hunger. And I grew older and I realized that humanity can grow more food that we can eat. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest problems of humanity today is obesity. We are eating more than we should eat. And if there's hunger, it's not because there's not enough food, it's because of people's nature preventing each other from accessing that food. So the problem is not enough food or enough shelter. We have enough means to supply every human being with everything we need to have a nice, comfortable life. However, people have greed, evil, and we see people that it doesn't matter how much of earth resources they are controlling, it's never enough for them, as the Zohar just said. When you don't appreciate, you can be bathing in luxury, bathing in gold and jewels and whatever, and it will never be enough for you. It will never satiate you. This is what King Solomon is saying in Ecclesiastes, the worst disease of them all. That you have, if you continue his words, that you have so much wealth and it's only making you more unhappy. Okay? It's evil. It's becoming evil. More than that, we're facing the great gifts that we have more freedom. Yes, we can say that today's politics is amazing. It's horrible. But like I think it was Churchill said, democracy is a terrible way of governing, but it's the least worst of them all. And even in dictatorships, most places around the world, it's not that bad. Oh, yes, there are some places it's horrible. I'm not saying. But we don't see that those people that enjoy the freedoms of today's modern life are really appreciative of what they have. The access to resources, the access to knowledge, the access to freedom of, freedom to have, your private life like never before. And more than that, we can see the prophecies are starting to come true in front of our eyes for the last century. As the prophets Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and the others, all of them are starting to come true, and we can see how, prophecies we didn't think we're going to see. And here we have the land of Israel that was barren and empty just during the 19th century. And now you have so many people living in this country that it became one of the richest countries in the world. And all the prophecies we are being simply happening in front of our eyes. And what is the Amalek? Asher karcha baderech. The Amalek is that part of humanity that is saying, no, it's all a coincidence. Nothing is from God. It's all because we worked harder. And more than that, it's all a coincidence. And then comes another commentary. Karcha baderech comes from the word kar, cold. Instead of getting excited every day, seeing what's around and seeing like, wow, appreciating the most amazing era in the history of humanity, we are busy complaining day and night. If you're not upset about the government, about history, about people, about politics, about whatever, about it, yes, the world is not perfect. But look at yourself. Are you thankful for what you're going through? The first healing is to start and bless everything you've got. Thank for your blessings. Your health, that we're much healthier than we've been ever before. Yes, oh, we are very sick. We are never being so sick because of all the how do you call it? The pollution and stuff like this. I'm not saying everything is great, but we're healthier than our ancestors. They didn't live long as we do. Look at the medicine we have today. Okay, that it's nothing to compare for what, sometimes I look at stuff that simple people go around. If it was a century ago, that would be, that's it, deadly. And, you go to a little surgery and you come home and you continue with your life for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay? We have to understand the Amalek is looking around and not being thankful, saying that everything is by coincidence, and thinking so small you cannot appreciate your blessings. And those forces who are trying to make you believe that evil is stronger, this is the name of the game. This is the war, as I say, for the last few years. The war is between Northwest and East, or different religions and stuff like this. There's only one war. There's a war about Amalek. Are we going to be thankful for the only one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? The God is endless love, life, endless love to every creature, to everything on earth and above it. Do we praise that God? Do we thank that God that every second is infusing his bliss into our lives? And that's what makes us happy and flourish. Okay? If we are thankful for that. Or we're busy fighting, trying to find who's evil, and we have to kill those evil guys and hate the enemy and be busy basically desecrating the whole creation. So, hatred or love, infinite bliss or darkness and hatred and separation, unity or fight, ongoing war and fight. This is two belief systems that are fighting right now, and it depends all in our gratitude and thankfulness, and we all have to be the light warriors. We can support the forces of light, the forces of peace, the forces of unity, the forces of abundance by doing our daily meditation, using those yichudim that we just spoke about. That is crucial. When we read the Zohar, when we study the Zohar, when we make the meditations, we can make the world better. And especially when we appreciate everything we have, we do the best we can not to complain, not to look at our blessings and to try to find, oh, but that is wrong. You know what? Doesn't worth it. Erase the Amalek, and we can see how humanity is going to grow to heights we've never seen before. We're just at the gates of the Messianic era. Good luck to us all. We need you all to work on it.